The Cyprus week this year started on Monday, the 16th of July, by raising the flag of the Republic of Cyprus and the the flag of the European Union, and which is an act of resistance, defiance about the Turkish invasion and occupation of 1/3 of the island for the last 44 years. This year is more important than ever because the process that all the Cypriot governments follow, it was to reach to a viable solution, just a viable solution through negotiations. And as a result, the fact that the invasion and occupation is an illegal act, it's a crime, it's breaking the international law of justice. We have done nothing in that direction. The question is, why didn't we do that? I understand, I presume that there were pressures on every government, including Makarios, Kyprianou, and all the other governments, to try to, by the Americans and NATO, and even Europe, to follow that process. Well, after so many years of negotiation, we reached last year a deadlock at the Grand Montana, a deadlock, because Turkey made it quite clear that she's not going to abandon her demands on Cyprus to be a guarantor power and having troops on the island. And those are the two things that the negotiations, as far as the Greek Cypriots is concerned, have reached a deadlock. Now, again, there is an effort to revive the negotiations from the point where it was stopped at Grand Montana. As a matter of fact, there is a new envoy, American envoy, Mrs. Jane Lute, who is appointed as a UN envoy to start approaching the two communities, the Greek Cypriots and Turkish Cypriots, and the three guarantor powers, Turkey, Greece, and Britain, to find out whether there is any way that the negotiations should start again in September of this year, which I very much doubt that it will come to any fruition, because Turkey is intransigent, especially now that the natural gas was discovered around the island, and Turkey is very much keen to have a share in that, especially having the pipes going through Turkey to Europe, whereas the Republic of Cyprus and Israel and Egypt were partners in that natural gas. They have other ideas to transfer it through Crete and Greece to Europe. Turkey is against that, and she's determined to block any effort in that direction. So the situation looks again very grim, and I'm still wondering why the Cyprus government is not trying the legal aspect of the situation. That is, Turkey committed a crime, a big crime, ethnic cleansing, raping, killing, bringing settlers to occupy the Greek Cypriot homes and villages and towns. It is a crime that it needs to be brought to International Criminal Court of Justice. It needs a Nuremberg trial, a Cypriot Nuremberg trial that I call it, where Turkey will be found guilty. Or there is a new court started by the Kurds and the French in Paris. It's called Permanent People's Tribunal. It could go to that. We need to explore the legal aspect, which has never been expected. Turkey behaves so arrogant. She claims that it is a peace operation. How can it be a peace operation? Ethnic cleansing, bringing settlers, raping, killing. Is this a peace operation? Is the United Nations accepting that as a peace operation? Is Europe accepting that as a peace operation? Is NATO accepting that as a peace operation? So it is obviously a crime, and it should be approached that we should now, especially if this new attempt for negotiations come to deadlock, which I'm 100% sure that it will, should pursue. So this is the message we started this year's event by voicing that and taking a much more sort of firm stand against the invasion of 1/3 of the island. I feel is the only way we can put Turkey on the dock and stop her behaving like an arrogant country that she has a hegemony over the whole Middle East. She feels because she's got a big army, she can do whatever she wants. And this is the message we want to spread. We did on Monday, and on Monday, of course, we had Theo from Lobby of Cyprus, who also spoke. And you know, lobbyists for Cyprus, they are in favor of retaining the Republic of Cyprus, not to dissolve the Republic of Cyprus, and they are against the Bizona-Bicommunal Federation, which is a monstrous concept, really. No other federation, there are about 44 federations in the world, none of them have that concept of Bizona-Bicommunal. It's segregation, it's apartheid, it's division, it's legalizing the partition of Cyprus, which eventually will lead to the Turkification of the whole of Cyprus, which is the aim of Turkey. Turkey wants to change the Lausanne Treaty of 1922, when she was forced to abandon any rights on Cyprus. And by changing that, she will claim that Cyprus is hers. And if the 1/3 is the occupation is legalized, then it's a question of time that they will find another way, a provocation or something, to move south. The Turkification and Islamization of Cyprus began in the north, and this will be spread into the south. They built a mosque in Niamilia, which is a village there, Mofwete, in the Kyrenia district, which holds 3,000 people. It has 4 minarets and will be the biggest mosque in the Middle East. What is the aim behind that? But the Islamization of the island. This present president of Turkey, Erdogan, who was recently re-elected with tremendous powers, the power to take decisions on his own. He's a new sultan. He wants to create a new Ottoman Empire, and Ottoman Islamic Empire. Kemal Atatürk created a sort of a new country, which was the religion did not play an important role in the state. So they want to abandon that and create, he wants to abandon that and create a new Ottoman Islamic country, and with an influence over the Middle East. And this should stop. How do we stop that? By spreading the word internationally. We have to. And this is why you're doing a tremendous job, David, by recording the events of this kind. You've been doing it for years, but now it's more important than ever that the world should know of the crime that was committed in Cyprus. Tonight we have the lobby for Cyprus. And they have a seminar about the uprooted population of the village Eptakomi. I don't know if you know of the village of Eptakomi. It's in the occupied part of Cyprus. Members of the community will speak about their loss, their homes, their property, everything, their relatives. Everyone has lost somebody, or still some people missing. And that will be very interesting. Tonight also the Archbishop Gregorius is attending the event. So it will be very, very interesting. Last night we had Vasilis Panagi, who is at the LGR and the Hellenic television, and he organized an evening with his own poetry about his own village. And I hope more and more villages will come out and speak independently about the loss they had as a result of the invasion and occupation. And of course, we ended the Cyprus week by two performances, one on Friday and one on Saturday, of an adaptation I made of the on the true apology of Socrates by Kostas. Kostas, give me the leaflet there. I think the name is David. Give me the leaflet there. Can I have the leaflet there?
Okay.
The leaflet there is. Forget the name. It's Kostas Varnalis. I don't know if you heard Kostas Varnalis. He was a famous literary man. He wrote poetry, plays, books. He was born in Bulgaria, in the city of Varna, and then he was of Greek origin, and then he went to Athens University, and then he became a famous writer. He was nominated for the Nobel Prize as well. So he wrote this book, the true apology of Socrates. That the center theme is that Socrates apologizing that with his teachings has in a way paralyzed the people to inactivity. That we must not do anything against the wrongdoers. We must not to teach the young people to take action against injustice, to tolerate injustice. And it's up to the gods to punish the wrongdoers, not up to us. And he said that is not the case because the principle might is right has been dominating the human race ever since civilizations have started. Sophocles is talking about that. All the writers, all the great, that principle is wrong. And it's been embraced by all the powers of the world all through the centuries, all the empires. America, that's why America embraced that. Might is right, although Abraham Lincoln, he says, no, that is wrong. Right is might, not might is right. But they killed him, of course, as you know. Abraham Lincoln was assassinated for his humanistic ideas and principles. But this idea, these principles must come back again. The right is might. Justice is might. Nobody is above the law. Whether as an individual or a community or a nation, you're answerable to the law. If you committed a crime, you have to answer. It's crime and punishment, as Dostoevsky said. So this is the play that we present on Friday and Saturday at 7:30. I hope you'll be able to attend, David, and film it as well.
I can't come, only today.
It's only today. Never mind. I think Hellenic TV is coming to film it. They already filmed.
Who is coming?
Hellenic TV. Hellenic, you know Hellenic TV? Don't you know Hellenic TV? Come on, David. You know them. I know how many times you work with them. Okay. So, anyway, this is the event, this is the program this year. And we'll continue in that direction, and hopefully there'll be much more awakening in the community, because the process we follow so far is creating people, yes men and yes women, rayades. The word rayas, it means, you bow to the power, to the king, and you don't take stand against oppression and injustice. So we have been the community in London as well, and in England as well, because the National Federation of Cypriots has to has to follow the line that every Cypriot government follows. You are not allowed to take a stand against but the Cypriot governments have been going wrong, and I hope they will realize it soon that it's about time to rethink a new approach to the solution of the Cyprus problem. The Cyprus Republic exists. It's alive. It's kicking. And it is and must continue to exist. It's recognized internationally. It's a member of the European Union. It's a member of the Commonwealth, and it has an international status. The so-called Turkish Cyprus state of the north, the northern Cyprus, is illegal. It will never be accepted by the United Nations or any other international body because it was created by force. There is a resolution in the United Nations saying that. So why entering? Why trying to form another structure like the Bicommunal Federation, which will dissolve the Republic of Cyprus, and that will be the end of the Hellenism of Cyprus. And Hellenism, David, is not a nationality. To me, it's a movement of renaissance, You know, you meet Hellenes in every part of the world. In universities, in hospitals, you find Hellenes. And this is what the whole world should embrace, Hellenes. We already embrace. That's all, not a nationality. Okay, we finish now, and that's enough for today. Thank you, David. We can stop it.
Your wife also traveled with you to go to Cyprus, yes?
Yes, Aruna came, but she doesn't want to speak. Don't worry about it, Marula. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you. I'll close that.
Okay, that's lovely. Το σεμινάριο. Και απόψε είναι από το χωριό Εκατόμου. Είναι για τις εμπειρίες. Αύριο είναι σεμινάριο. Η παράσταση η αληθινή απολογία του Σοκράτη είναι την Παρασκευή και Σάββατο. The true apology of Socrates. Σάββατο θα πάω στην Edinburgh. Για την Παρασκευή μπορείς. Θα πάει μια ανάλυση ώρα του. Περιμένω γιατί έχω τα αυτοκίνητα και το φοβούμαι. Θα έρθω μέσα μετά.
Very well, thank you. Welcome. Lovely to see you.
Θυμάσαι το GPS το podcast. GPS το podcast. Για μια στιγμή.
Καλησπέρα. Μια και αντιγραφή.
Καλά, Έλα κυρία Κομέδο.
Ήρθαν
Well, I didn't think I need a microphone here. As a theatre, I think that our voices can easily be heard. Yes, you want me to use a microphone? Okay. All right. And like to welcome everybody here tonight on behalf of Lobby for Cyprus. We know that this week is Cyprus Week, and every day has been an event. And thanks to George Eugeniou of Theatro Technis, we had the raising of the flag on Monday. George, very successful, supportive, was the choir. Thank you, George. And this has been for how many years, George, have we been doing this? 40 years from here, yes. Thank you. I'd like to first appreciate the presence of His Eminence, the High Commissioner to the Republic of Cyprus. Village associations are represented by Savas Pavlidis from Labidos Karavas, Andreas Luga from Famagusta Association, Andrea at the back, Pagomides, which many of you here tonight, and friends of Lobby for Cyprus. We have also coming, I know, the President of the Federation, Chris Karaolis, who's belated, and other members who will be coming late from other events which have been held this evening. Well, Cyprus, how many years have passed now, and we're still remembering the days of 1974. Many of us here tonight were present, as I was, and our memories of those very, very difficult days that we passed through, because it wasn't just knowing that, oh, we have a war, but we never knew what was going to happen the next minute, the next hour, the next day. And I remember as a young man of the age of 16 that my parents had to disappear. They were both in the medical profession. So I was left in the village with my sister, and they were at the general hospital looking after all the patients that came through, both Greek and Turkish. And I can tell you a few stories that happened actually in the general hospital in Nicosia as well. But those memories live on. Tonight, it's only a reflection of one village, Tagomi, that most of the villages in the occupied part of Cyprus experienced. And tonight, Nick Yanoulou, the president of the Tagomi Association, a very passionate man, a man who not only believes in his country, but just a fighter, a man who wants always to be able to present his country in the right way, in the right manner. So I will pass on to Nick and his team tonight, and I'm sure that we're going to hear things which will bring back a lot of memories for all of us. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Theo. Can you all hear me okay? Yeah. First of all, I want to thank Bobby for giving us the opportunity tonight to present our village, which is not it's representative of the whole of the occupied areas. And I want to start with a video production made by a cousin of mine, and many in the room here related to her. Her name's Elena Maroledi. Now, she currently lives in New York. I believe there is a few gentlemen in here that may have met her already. I'm going to give you a little bit of background and how she ended up in the industry that she's in. At the time of the invasion in '74, she lived in Famagusta. She was approximately 12 years old, and like many other Cypriots at the time, her father was working abroad in the USA. Now, what he did, he was sending money back to Cyprus, and her mother was investing it in property in Famagusta and building a portfolio. Then they decided that he would go back to Cyprus. They'd live together as a family. So in '74, he started selling their assets in America. They had a restaurant which he sold, and he actually sent the money back to Cyprus maybe 3 weeks before the invasion. So all their money went back. Obviously, we know what happened. It got occupied. Her mother, Lugia Maroleti, was a very, very passionate person, and she had a lot of guts. She used to drive in and out of Famagusta, taking products from the shops that they owned out so she could sell them, so they could raise money to feed themselves. And there's one story is that as the Turkish tanks were driving in, she was driving out the other side. Anyway, from that, they ended up in the UK. They lost everything. They not only lost everything in Cyprus, but their assets in America were transferred to Cyprus. They lost all that as well. And from the UK, I forgot to mention that her father was due to go back to Cyprus in mid-August of '74, and obviously he couldn't go back. So instead of him going to Cyprus, his wife, Eleanor, and her sister ended up going to the USA. They started a new life. And Logia, her mother, whenever she came to London, she used to stay with us. And she used to say to me that I'm never going to invest any more of my money in property. Every single penny I make, I'm going to invest in books that she loved, in cultural things. And every time she used to come to London, she used to drive to Charing Cross Road, to the bookshops, and she used to buy a mountain of books. And we used to keep them in her house until she was able to. She used to obviously be overweight most of the time. So, as Eleanor, her daughter, grew up, she started up Cypreco of America, which is a cultural organisation. She worked for ABC Television, where she learned how to produce things like this. And then she started up Actina FM, Actina TV, and that's an organisation that she runs today, simply as a labour of love to preserve her past. So, before we carry on, I'd like to show you her film. This was made approximately 3 years ago. So, we're ready. Thank you very much.
Eftagomi, or Eftagomi as it is commonly called, is a picturesque mountain village within the Carpathian Peninsula. It stands out for its distinctive position, which combines several benefits, such as a beautiful mountain and landscape, a rich and productive land, and over the mountain we also find the deep blue sea. As you get closer to the village, this pleasant view is distracted with the first signs of the 1974 catastrophic Turkish invasion and subsequent occupation. Eftagomi's Christian cemetery pillaged and desecrated. Broke the ceasefire on August 14, 1974 and launched a second full-scale military invasion on Cyprus. Eftagomi was among the first villages in the Carpathian Peninsula to be captured. Upon their arrival in the village on August 15th, the Turkish soldiers engaged themselves in a series of outrageous acts against the Greek Cypriot people of Eftagomi, as related by those who lived through it.
Το όνομα μου είναι Κωνσταντής. Μα όχι παρακόμη. Εγκασανή που με αναλούν από την Εφτακόμη. Μόλις ήρθαν οι Τούρκοι, ειδοποιήσαμε να κατούμε κάτω στην εκκλησία, την πλατεία του Ευώξου από την εκκλησία, για να μας συγκεντρωθούμε και χάμε, για να μας πάρουν στην πελάτια. Επίαμε και χάμε, το φωνάξα του που είσαι το λεωφορείο του Σάιλου από την Εφτακόμη. Έφερε το λεωφορείο για να με βάλει αυτά μας μέσα και πήραμε στην Γαλάτια, περίπου 6 ώρα, νύχτα. Συγκεντρώσαμε και μέσα στην πλατεία της Γαλάτιας, ούλους, βάλαμε γραμμή και φωνάζαν έναν το όνομα του και πιάναν τους. Ορισμένους δεν μας επειράξαν και είχαμε και ένα κόν όσοι δεν είχαν κακά προηγούμενα με τους κοκκανούς τους Τουρκούς, δεν τους επηρεάσαν καθόλου.
Πες μου, είναι αλήθεια ότι έγιναν βιασμοί στην Ευτακόμη από Τούρκους?
Έτσι λέω πως έγιναν. Όχι έτσι λέω. Ορισμένοι οι ίδιες οι κοπελούες έρχονταν και λέω μόνο εμένα.
Έχω ακούσει για κάποια ιστορία για κάποιον που τον χτυπούσαν με το όπλο μέχρι που έσπασε το όπλο. Ποιος ήταν αυτός?
Μα είναι και ο τρεις που δέρανε σε πολλά δέρα και τον Κυριάκο τον Αγροφύλακα του καιρού του Κατσαού και δέρα και τον Γιωκίν τον πήραμε τόσο πολλά. Και σπάσαν τα όπλα πάνω του και βάλαν του και πτερώσαν τα κελάς.
Γιατί τους χτύπησαν αυτούς?
Δεν ξέρω, είχα προηγούμενα. Δεν θέλαν να τους εκδικηθούν.
Πώς ήταν η ζωή τους με τους κουβάλιδους από την Τουρκία? Έχω πληροφορηθεί ότι σας έκλεβαν, ότι έρχονταν αργά, σας χτύπουσαν τις πόρτες.
Έκλεβαν, αλλά είχε ορισμένους που ήταν και πολλά καλοί. Διότι εγώ είχα παράπονο, πιο πολύ παράπονο είναι από τους Τούρκους του Χοκκανού παρά από τους Τούρκους της Τουρκίας. Και είναι θεατήκοντες. Εφέραν τους. Ενώ οι ίδιοι οι Χοκκανοί μας είναι η βαρβαρική λύκη που ακούει, είναι οι Χοκκανοί μας οι Ευτακομίτες. Οι Τούρκοι της Ευτακόμης.
From various large groups of men arrested between August 15th and August 22nd, ages 14 and over, 14 of them thereafter went missing and are believed to have been murdered. Λέγεται ότι ο Κόνης, ο οποίος ήταν υπεύθυνος του συνεργατικού, ότι έχει σκοτωθεί, επίσης και ο Μουχτάρης της Ευτακόμης. Είναι αλήθεια?
Μα όπως μαθαίνουμε, σκοτώσαν τους. Αν μένει από την ίδια ώρα, αλλά επόμενοι. Έτσι μάθαμε τελικά. Διότι ο γιος του Λούκα επικέρωσε έναν άνθρωπο δικό τους Ποποτζιτούρκων και ήρθε και εξέτασε και εξακρίβωσε ότι υπό τα βασανιστήρια που του κάνουν από τις ερωτήσεις υπό τα βασανιστήρια είναι πρόσθετον η καρδιά του έναν τεξέ και πέθανε.
In recent years, the remains of 7 executed men from Eptakomi were found in mass graves in the vicinity of Galatia, a purely Turkish Cypriot inhabited village near Eptakomi and Komikepi. DNA testing has revealed that the remains belong to Kyriakos Pierou, Dimitris Charalambos Koutra, Giorgos Kashouri, Yannis Gerolemu, Leotis Christofy, Charalambos Mikhail Sotiriou, and Adamos Sergiou. In late 1976, the main church of Eptakomi, dedicated to Apostolos Lukas, was turned into a mosque after all of its ecclesiastical decor was destroyed and removed. Which was new and had no monetary value, was broken down and placed along the corridors on the second level of the church. The only ecclesiastical item of monetary value which was looted was the floor displayed wall fragment with a painting from the original 13th century church. Another priceless item which used to be housed inside the church was the priceless 11th century Eptakomi Four Gospels manuscript, which 3 courageous Greek villagers removed during the first phase of the Turkish invasion and kept it well hidden for 2.5 years while in captivity. Despite the ongoing beatings and interrogations of several Greek inhabitants who were suspected of having knowledge of the whereabouts of the gospel, all Greek villagers stuck to the same story, that it left Eptakomi with the priest during the first phase of the invasion.
Ταλαιπωρείται το Ευαγγέλιο και ορισμένοι που, διότι εμείς είμαστε ευμάτωτοι και εκείνοι που μείναν που τους έπιαν ευμάτωτους προσπαθήσαν να το φυλάξουν. Κάποιος οργανό μας, κάποιος δάσκαλος, Κυριακούλης που ήταν ποδά στην ελεύθερες περιοχές, έστειλε μήνυμα μέσω των Ηνωμένων Εθνών να προσέξουν το Ευαγγέλιο, μήπως και χαθεί και πια ούλουστο. Πριν αυτό το μήνυμα, οι Τούρκοι δεν είχαν καθόλου ιδέα μας το Ευαγγέλιο. Ούτε φοβούμαστε τίποτε καθόλου εμείς. Μετά το μήνυμα τούτο πιο, ξεκινήσαν και ηρεύκαν το. Ήρθε μια ημέρα να μου χτάρει τους Τούρκους. Είμαστε και μιας ηλικίας και φίλοι από μικροί, διότι εννοήκαμε μαζί. Και δηλαδή μου λέει Κωνσταντιέ, να σου πω, τράβησε με πίσω από τους άλλους. Μου λέει το Ευαγγέλιο, τσίνο δηλαδή μου, έχετε το. Θα τον έχουμε. Δηλαδή πού είναι, δηλαδή είμαι στην εκκλησιά. Θα του να πάμε να σ' ανοίξω να το πιάσεις. Όμως δηλαδή του εγώ σύμφωνα τη στράτα μας, όπως δηλαδή η θρησκεία μας εμάτα του, δεν μπορώ να αρχίσω μας το Ευαγγέλιο. Είναι ιερά πράγματα που δεν δικαιούμαι, δεν είμαι ιερωμένος. Λέει πιάνω το εγώ. Αλλά ποιον Ευαγγέλιο, πού είναι, μας στην Αγία Τράπεζα. Μα όχι τσίνο ρε, τσινωνία το λέει, ξέρω το. Το άλλο το παλιό, εσούνα σε καλά και μάλι. Το Ευαγγέλιο εκείνο έφυγε το παπάς από το πολύ ώρα, από την πρώτη ώρα που έφυγε τώρα. Ενώ και εγώ με εμπιστοσύνη. Είπαμε είμαστε οι γνώριμοι και φίλοι παλιοί. Και είσαι μου εμπιστοσύνη και σταματήσαμε να το ηρεύω, όσο και που το λέω.
By 2008, the Church of Apostolos Lukas stopped functioning as a mosque and was left to decay. A new mosque was built across the street. Presently, the church is in a state of disrepair and filled with garbage. The walls are crumbling and it's in dire need of restoration. Century church of Agios Georgios has been severely damaged and plundered. The 16th century iconostases and icons which were housed here have been looted and the church has been turned into a stable and a barn. Entering the church is shocking. On one hand, we get a glimpse of the original decor of the dome, which is adorned with beautiful old plates, centuries-old custom of Entakomi, and on the other, you are sickened by the stench produced by the animals which are housed in here. Behind the altar, they maintain a chicken coop. The step of the church is used to slaughter, shave, and also skin animals.
Και στη δουλειά μας και εκείνοι και εμείς βοηθούσαμε τους οτιδήποτε που μπορούσαμε να τους κάνουμε. Δεν είχαμε τα τράκτα, είχαμε τις περιουσίες, έρχονταν και εκείνοι είχαν τις οικογένειες τους, τουρκούες και δουλεύκαν στις δουλειές μας. Ήταν ευχαριστημένοι, δηλώναν πως ήταν ευχαριστημένοι. Αλλά όμως μετά την εισβολή και ύστερα έδειξαν το πρόσωπο τους, τις προθέσεις τους που είχαν.
Και ποιες ήταν αυτές οι προθέσεις?
Και θέλαν να καταλάβουν τις περιουσίες μας και τις κοπέλες, τις όμορφες τις κοπέλες θέλαν να τις...
In August of 1976, a colonist murdered in cold blood Haralabos Agapiou, a disabled World War II veteran, to steal his money. Following this tragic development, fearing for their lives, the last of the remaining Greek Cypriot inhabitants of Entakomi, numbering approximately 150, decided to also leave their village. They left heartbroken, leaving behind their beloved village, their homes, lands, and all of their valuable possessions, except for one, the priceless 11th century four Gospels manuscript of evangelists Mark, Luke, Matthew, and John, commonly known as the Gospel of Entakomi, which was well hidden in the home of Nicolas and Florentia Januli. When the two left the village in mid-1976, they risked their lives again when the gospel was found in their few belongings during a routine search by the Turkish troops. Very cleverly, Nicolas Januli claimed it was an old and worthless book of sentimental value to his wife. The story was accepted, and the gospel was brought to the free areas of Cyprus. The Four Gospels manuscript of Eptakomi, which is handwritten on animal skin, is considered one of the most illuminated Byzantine manuscripts found on the island of Cyprus. However, during its centuries-long turbulent history, it has suffered a lot of damage. Its initial binding has been destroyed. Over the centuries, parts of the Gospels of Evangelists Matthew and John went missing. The depictions of the two evangelists are also missing.
Churches. You answer me that question. The gentleman that you saw, Nicolas Januli, is actually my father's brother, and I was named after him because he had no children, so I guess I've taken up his mantle to keep everything going. During the invasion, we were based over here, but there was constant news reports all the time. But I remember at the time, the BBC actually visited Eptakomi twice. We managed to find one of those news footage, and I'm going to show it to you now.
People come back to their houses. You give the names.
Do what we can find all around.
Water comes only from the island.
Well, there was a supply of water to the town, but it has been cut off last week. And what we use is left on the deposits over the houses over there. Now these are getting empty. Now we have to drink water from wells, which is not good. In the village.
But from what?
Well, from some of the Great Cypriots.
So where are they then?
Well, they're up on the mountains, you know. Some who got away. And any time they could come down the village, start trouble.
So with an accent like you've got, what are you doing in a village in Cyprus?
Well, I come here for holiday, as you could see. I'm stuck here.
And what are you doing with this?
Well,
Where'd you come from?
I come from London.
Whereabouts?
Round Elephant Castle.
You're a long way from home, aren't you?
Oh yes, I'm a long way from there. Well, hoping to go back sometime.
The first part of that wasn't actually a tagomi, but I kept it in because you could see what was happening there. No water, no food, all that. So I thought it was a very important point to make. The second point, when the UN vehicle arrived next to the church, that was at tagomi. And the reason why there was, the boy there's a Turkish Cypriot, I've actually met him since. The reason why there was no tagomides there because they'd heard of what's been happening in the previous villages. The previous village was Gomi Kabir, and they fled into the mountains. They stayed there for 2 or 3 days, something like that, until they all coaxed back into the village. Now, there is another, that was the first day of the occupation, there is another BBC footage that showed them about 1-2 weeks later with the Red Cross taking food parcels, and I haven't been able to find that yet, but I will keep looking. Now, we're going to touch on a few of the subjects touched on in the film in a little bit more detail. One of them, the most important one, is our missing. We had 17 missing at the time of the invasion. We have 8 here. The next slide. The one previous. And 10 there. So there's 18 there. Out of the 18, the one in the bottom row in the middle is what we affectionately call him Charlie. He was the one that was murdered by the colonists, and as a result of that, the Tagomides all left in 1976. Out of the rest of them, the other 17, 14 have been found in mass graves. We've still got 4 missing. 4 missing. So if anyone's got any information that can help us find the last 4, we'd be obviously all the families would be eternally grateful. A couple of the families of those missing wouldn't come tonight, not because they were frightened of anything, but it's just too painful. Can we just go to the next slide, please? I want to pay special tribute to these 2 ladies. There's a Turkish Cypriot journalist on the left, some of you have already met her, her name's Sevgül Yuludag, and on the right is Christina Bablu from Gomi Kabir. They work very closely together in amassing information on all mass graves throughout the island of Cyprus. And for us in particular, it's important that we find all of ours. That site there where they're standing is called Limni της Galakias, and that's where the last 6 were found. And the next slide, please. Sorry, not the last 6. There were 6 people found in that mass grave. 3 of them from Gomi Kabir, that's Christina Bablu's brother and her father, and the 3 on the right were from Tagomi. So that took us down to 14, and we still got another 4 to find. Next slide, please. Now, once they discover the mass graves, obviously they exhume the bodies. They then go to a place called the CMP, which is based in Nicosia Airport. It's a Cypriot missing persons bureau, I believe they call it. And as you can see, they assess all the remains they find, they put them together, then they analyse them through DNA testing, and then they can reunite them with their families. Next slide, please. Once they've done that, and they're happy, they assess how they died. I mean, some of them have got bullet holes on the head there. They're all replicated in the same place, and they've analysed from the direction that the bullet entered the body, they must have been on their knees. And that applies to nearly every single one that they've found so far from Eptagomi, especially the ones in the larger grave that was mentioned in the first video. Next slide, please. I want to show you an example of some of the work that we've done. I'll call it as an association, but it's more as members. My wife's uncle, his name's Andreas Barris, who unfortunately passed away about 4 or 5 years ago. He was a police sergeant. Could you just hold it a second? He was a police sergeant, but more than that, he knew all about forensics, he knew about police work, he knew how to investigate murders, and as soon as the Green Line opened in '74, one of his first jobs, he used to go over and try and gather as much information as he could. And bear in mind that he knew many of the Turkish Cypriots. So I'm going to play this and I'll explain what this was about, because I went with him. First of all, he went as soon as the Green Line opened, as I did, and this was taken in August of 2003. Could we? If you can pay special attention to the dips in the ground.
Δούλαμε ο τόπος, έχω 2 μάρτυρες που λέσουν ότι παίξαν το αδαμί τους έρκους και θάψαν το αδαμί. Δηλαδή, είπε τους ο Χάλιλος του Χασούμι ότι έπαιρναν τον αδάμι στη Γεωργία και δάμε στο σκαλί του Χατζιαθανάση, έκανε σκιά του αυτοκίνητο και μετά στιγμιάζουν και έπαιρναν του γούρου να τους φύγει. Και πυροβολούσαν τότε και χτυπήσαν και έπαιζαν. Ήρθαν με ο τράπτας και βάλαν την μια φούσκα ακόμα του πάνω. Και ύστερα από 2 ημέρες χαρήκαν τα πόδια. Είδαν κάποια γενέκα χορκανή μας που ήταν από τις τετράτσια, οι φυλάτες. Και όταν είδαν οι Τούρκοι ότι έφεραν τα πόδια, ήρθαν και σωρέψαν και άλλο χώμα και έβαλαν και άλλο χώμα που πάνω του. Και τώρα που μες τον Απρίλιο, 23 Απρίλιο που άρχισε έγινε ελευθέρα διακίνηση ποδά. Ήρθα εγώ 6 Μαΐου και είδα το χώμα που ήταν φρέσκο, φαίνονταν τα λόγια του φούχτας του χείλου που ετοιμώσαν το χώμα και φύγαν για να εξαφανιστεί κάθε ίχνος του Αδαμού. Τώρα βλέπεις ότι μαζεμένο το χώμα βέβαια έβρεξε και αλλοιώθηκε λίγο, επίαν οι αρμές. Αλλά φαίνεται ότι φτιάχτηκε το χώμα και έφυγε. Την πρώτη φορά που ήρθα εγώ ήταν καθαρό ότι ήταν φρέσκο σιγούμενο το χώμα.
Right, that is a place called Skanin Hagiatanasi, which is halfway between Eptagomi and the next village, which is Galatia, which is the largest Turkish village in Karpasia. Now, my uncle gathered that information from Horkani, who were in the village at the time, but also from Turkish Cypriots. They must have had the knowledge that he knew where it was, because when we went in August, he went in May and he saw it in that condition. So between April, when the Green Line opened, and I think it was the 6th of May that he went, the land turned into that. Now that was flat land. Could you take us back just one shot so we can view that scene? What you're looking at is the shape of the land. They've obviously gone with the JCB, dug up the area where they thought the body was and disposed of it somewhere. So when we took this video in August, you could still see the areas, and being a forensic expert, because he's looked at many police cases He knew what he was looking for. We looked at the church. He couldn't see any evidence of any bullet holes on the church. And as I said, he knows what he's looking for. And here, it doesn't quite come out, but there's all the JCB marks in the ground where the JCB was digging it. Now, what they did with the body, we don't know. We took this film to the United Nations, but obviously Turkey isn't accountable to anyone. Apparently, at the time, someone admitted to some murders on Turkish TV, but that guy, after the event, was then hushed up and made out that he made a mistake. So that's as far as we got with that one. Can we go to the next slide now, please? Now, in our invitation, it mentions our book. Now, what we've done, because we don't want our history and culture to disappear, and we decided to commission a guy called Leonidas to write about a book about our village. Now, that book has been in, well, production. He's been preparing it for the last three years. I mean, we want to get it right. It's been produced in Greek first of all. It's going to be released this year, later part of this year, and then we're going to produce it in English because there's so many people that obviously Greek is their second language, and it's important that we get our message across. So if we go to the next slide. Next slide, please. Right. This is going to be chapter 1. I won't dwell on it, but just to give you an idea of the content of the book, it's going to be like from ancient times, Byzantine Technis, all the way through British rule, up to the Turkish invasion and the events that happened after that. Next. Ottoman. So Ottoman Empire, and well, I call it Turkish occupation.
No, it's not written correctly. Ottoman. It says Ottoman.
Oh, sorry. Good point. I must add it is being proofread. Thank you.
The spell check, that's what it will come out.
It will. Actually, Leonidas sent me this. So he was going to the airport on Monday, and I said to him, "You must send me this before you go." So I made him send it to me from Heathrow. But I'll put him on that. Next slide, please. Right, this is an area view of our village, and unfortunately, you can clearly see on the right. I'll be careful with my words, but it's a very large mosque that's been built. Next slide, please. This is another view of our village. That in the background is called the Dragondan. Yeah, I have to ask higher authority. So that's our Dragondan, and the next one. That one is Gambana on the left, and again that's from a different direction. Next picture. Now this is a typical village house in our village. My grandparents' house looks like that. I'm sure many other people's do as well. Next picture. Right, this, there's some better pictures later on, but this is our most famous beach. It's called the Yudi. If you just Google Yudi, it does actually come up. Next slide. That's the beach from it again. That doesn't do it justice, but there's some better pictures later on. Carry on. Right, this one, we call it the screaming face, if you like. Now that is actually looking directly out at sea to Turkey. That's ironic, really, isn't it? To the right of that, you can see the mountain going taller. On the top of that, there's an outpost that was built by the British during the Second World War, and they used to pay Tagomides to go and be lookouts, just in case there was a German or Turkish occupation. There was fear of the Germans entering the war on the Turkish side. And my mother's father was also one of the lookouts there. Next slide, please. Now, this is a picture of the Yudin from up there. Now, you can see how beautiful that village is. That beach is. Now, you look at that, you think it makes a perfect harbour. In ancient times, it was a harbour, and I think Louis, you've swum in there and seen the harbour wall. I believe it's on the right-hand side, going out to the sea. There is an underwater, or what's left of the underwater seawall. And on that left-hand side, there's actually remnants of an ancient settlement. We understand that the Greeks from the Trojan Wars landed here and possibly set up a settlement. And in the film earlier, you heard Eleanor talking about our most famous possession, our Bible, the Evangelium. Let's get it right in a minute. Our Book of St. Luke. It was actually found in a cave there. So we can go to the next slide right now. That's the cave it was found in. It's called Exanduit, I can't even say. No, how do you say it? Thank you. You always have to have experts on hand. Now, it was found with people from our neighbouring village, Gobin Kabir. There is a funny story attached, but I won't say it now because I don't want to keep you here all night. But the bottom line is the remains of the saint were taken to Gobin Kabir and they built a church called Exendis. And I believe we got the best part of the deal. We got what we call our Bible, which is now on display at Nikos Monastery. So that's where it was found. Next slide, please. Now, this is an interesting place. It's a warehouse, and it's on the northern coast of our village. Our village is on the southern coast of the Bendabakilov. If you go over the mountain range, there's that warehouse. It's to the left of the Glima. Now, my mother told me that they used to, all the villagers used to get together at harvest time, and they used to pick all their fruit and their ranch and everything. They used to store it there, and ships used to come along, load it up, and go all the way around the Cape of Garbasia to Boazin to unload it. And it seems such a long, laborious way to do it, but they had no other forms of transport because there wasn't roads and things like that in them days. So it's just an interesting place, and you can see it's still actually standing. Next slide, please. Again, this is just another example, some more pictures, but it doesn't seem to want to come up. So next slide. Our Bible. This is the most important thing to us. I'm just going to ask Louis if you wouldn't mind just reading out an extract from our website.
This is an extract from the website of Eftagomi. Bible and Churches. In the village of Saint Thomas in Masol, with three men from Eftagomi, Nicolas, Yanulis, Andonis, and Dorcas, and Christos Katsouris, who in 1974 guarded and preserved a priceless treasure. It is a beautiful copy of the Gospels, which is hundreds of years old and handwritten on animal skin. The calligraphy is remarkable, fine and regular. The title page of each Gospel has a decorative heading in colour with a design of flowers and leaves. On the opposite page is an icon and sacred painting of the saint whose name the Gospel bears. Every chapter starts with a capital letter in gold, and similar capitals are used to stress important words in the text. The writing is in brown ink, and musical notes in the Byzantine scale are indicated for the cantor to read above the appropriate word.
Thank you, Louis. We have a complete full copy here, if anyone wants to have a look at it, with the two icons that still remain. We in England, we raised over £5,000, well, some time ago, and that was the cost to restore it. It was sent to the Archbishopry in Nicosia, where I think it took them about 3-4 years. You saw pictures on Eleanor's film there where they restored it. It was fully restored. It's now on permanent display at the Gikos Monastery Museum. And if any Eptagominas want to go and see it, it's free entry. You don't have to tell them that you're from Eptagomin, they let you in. If they don't, give me a ring and I'll call them. It's also been used on Cypriot stamps, and I have copies of them there. I think it was about 1984, 85, something like that.
What year are we talking about? What century?
I believe it was the 11th century. We're not actually 100%, but it's either 11th or 12th century it was written. And we believe it was written in a place, my mum used to call it Abist or something. It's a monastery in between Eptagomi and it's Damasos, I think, isn't it? There's a monastery called Damasos, which is in between Eptagomi and Galatia. So if you Google it, it does actually come up. And that's where we believe it was written by monks, obviously, and they wrote it on kids' skin. And what's unique about the book is not so much the writing or what it says, it's been written in a musical tone. That's what makes it unique.
Is it a Psaltiri or a Bible?
No, it's a Bible, but it's written in a musical tone. It's just written uniquely different to any other book. In 72, there's well, it's not a story, it's a fact, that an American historian went to the village. Now, you might know more, but he went in 72, he took pictures of it, and they valued it was a prize. They valued it $1 million to try to buy it, and the Hogani wouldn't give it to him. It was just a priceless possession. It meant more to them than any amount of money. Now, I just want to mention something about my uncle. When you heard Gashani mention about the Turkish occupation, when the Turks came and they were looking for it, but they managed to hide it. Three wise men, we call them, they managed to hide it from them. And my uncle was he was the man that looked after it before the invasion. Anyway, he hid it in his ashram, in the wheat, in his yard. It was stacked up there. And it came closer to the time when they were all going to leave. And he thought, well, I've got to get it out, but I can't just shift all this wheat, because then the Turkish occupation troops said, what are you doing? So what he used to do, he used to encourage the colonists to come and help themselves to the ashram. Now, his wife, my aunt, had a reputation of being, how can I put it kindly, being very tight. So she said, well, you've got to get away with it, give it away, but I don't want you giving it away for nothing. And he said, well, we can't get it. So what he used to do, he used to give the colonists money. I used to say to them, come in the house and give me my money back and pretend you're paying me for the ashram, so she could see him collecting money from. So they managed to get the ashram down. When it was at a low level, they fortunately the wheat was cut. When they were going to go, and they just had to get it out. So he finally got it out. He hid it in his belongings. Everyone was searched as they were leaving Eptagomi in 76, and they found the book. But it was in such a poor state because it had been hidden for those 2 years. It got damaged with worrying as well, and it didn't look like a priceless artifact. So fortunately, the guy that was searching them, the Turkish officer that was searching them, didn't know what he was looking at, and said to them, well, what's this? And my uncle said, well, it's just an old book. I don't know why I even take it. My wife won't throw anything away. He believed it and gave it back to him. And when they went to Ayos Thomas, and they consecrated the church, Magarios actually went to Ayos Thomas, and he asked my uncle, he said to him, he didn't mention what it was. He just said to my uncle, did you get it out? That's all he said, because he knew my uncle, and when he visited Eptagomi in the 50s, he stayed with him. And my uncle said yes, and that was all he said. He didn't ask him anything else, he just wanted to know if it was safe. And it stayed with the Eptagomians for all these years, up to approximately 7-8 years ago when we put it in Vikos Monastery for... I mean, it's important that people get the opportunity to see it. I mean, my children didn't see it before because they never got an opportunity to go to Eptagomi. It's important that everyone can go and view it, in its splendour. And it's in the glass case, and my uncle's name is mentioned there. And his words when he was passing away, and he didn't have any children, but when he was passing away, he said to, I think it was Gashani, he said, "Do Evangelion manam mangesas." That was his last words. In other words, watch that Bible with your eyes. That's how important it was to him and our fellow villagers. And wherever we go in the world, people ask us, what's happened to your Bible? Well, there it is. It's a because if you get an opportunity, go and have a look. Can we have our next picture, please? Now, to the right of the priest is actually my uncle. This picture, I think would have been taken about 1950 when they were building the new church of Angel Duck, because we did have an older, smaller one, but they knocked it down because the village was getting too big and there wasn't enough places in there for the coming. Next picture, please. That's Angel Duck as it looks today in its poor state. I actually managed to get my brother to take the megaphones off and put crosses on there because he photoshopped it because I thought I'm not going to put that picture out there with the megaphones on. Next picture, please. That's inside. You can see the poor condition of it, which Eleanor showed in the video. Next picture, please. That's our other church, Yorkis. I think it's about 18th century, and this one had beautiful icons on the wall, I believe, but they've all been disappeared. They're all disappeared now, been washed off. Next picture, please. You can see that's the inside. And you can see what they've done to it. They're treating it as a stable. They're showing no respect. I can't find any more words to describe it. About 3 years ago, I took a delegation of British MPs and I took them in there, and I've got a picture somewhere of all 7 of them standing in front of that iconostase, because it's important that when you ask people to fight for you, they have to know what they're fighting for. And I think that is a perfect message. Next picture, please. Well, every single graveyard in the occupied areas is exactly the same, smashed, desecrated. It wasn't like that until 76, when all our last remaining villagers left. The settlers thought that this is one of the stories we were told, that we buried our dead with all their valuables. So they were smashing and opening the graves looking for valuables, but obviously they didn't find any. Next picture, please. And again, that's replicated. You can see the lid's just tossed off and left. Next picture, please. Now, I took this picture about 10 years ago. Can you all see the cross? That's a top of a gravestone. They've taken it away. They took this. Our graveyard, obviously, is on the southern side of Bendabachtilos. This is near a place called the Glima, but higher up, which is on the other side of the Bendabachtilos. And they took it there as a picnic table. You can see the benches. They haven't bought new benches. So next slide, please. And again, this is just more lists of the chapters. And next slide. Right. I want to mention this one. Perhaps Louis, you could read that, and then I'll explain a little bit more.
In recognition of your valued and dedicated service to the causes of Hellenism, promoting philanthropy and goodwill, by the UCSC Board of Directors, award presented to Andreas and George Psara at the annual New Year's Eve celebration on December 31st, 2014 at the St. John's Greek Orthodox Church in Anaheim. Andreas and brother George from Eftagomis, Cyprus, are the owners of Harry's Cafe restaurant in Anaheim. The story is truly amazing and idealised the American dream. After departing the island as refugees, following the 1974 Turkish invasion and having lost everything, they came to Southern California, worked many hours as cooks until they bought their first restaurant. It's the brothers' way of celebrating Thanksgiving Day nowadays to open their restaurant each year and invite everyone for a free meal. This is not an easy endeavour to plan and arrange for workers to cook and serve for up to 1,000 people, mostly strangers each year. This year, the United Cypriots of Southern California proudly salute our two officers and compatriots, Andreas and George Psara, for being so giving and generous, especially on Thanksgiving Day.
Thank you, Lou. The reason why I wanted to read that out is just an example of ordinary people being thrown away from their livelihood. They're my age, they would have been about 16 at the time. They've gone to another country, they've made new lives for themselves, and because of their passion, they've been successful. Now that is repeated all around the world. We've got Eptagomides that have gone to South Africa, to Australia, to America. They're scattered through the four corners of Cyprus. They originally went to Aeros Thomas and Pladaniskia, but there's not many left there now because people have moved on because they were chasing work. But the point of this is, if all the refugees hadn't been thrown out of Cyprus, where would Cyprus? I mean, Cyprus is quite successful, but where would it have been? That's the question. With all these people, building their communities and their infrastructure, what could they have done if they were still in Cyprus? So I don't see the point in throwing them out. There's obviously a bigger picture here. Next slide, please. We mentioned earlier in memory of the three, so I really would like to dedicate this evening to these three gentlemen. Without those three, our Bible would not now be sitting in Gitkos Monastery. And I really also would like to add some personal stories. Now, one of my cousins, her name's Despina Giriakou. She can't be with us this evening, but she was enclaved for approximately 7 months. And I'd just like Louis to read out her story, and I'll add something at the beginning. Okay?
Despina Ansel, Father Kyriakou Christophia Veftagomi. The village population in 1974 was approximately 700 people and was mainly a land-owning farming community. Some of the villagers also had land which was near the beach. They grew their own vegetables, they had grapevines, carob fruit and olive trees, of which they were especially well known for the quality of their olive oil. Eftagomi had two churches. Our largest church was Apostolos Lukas and the smaller older church called Agios Georgios, both of which was the focus of the villagers. The community would regularly get together for various functions and was full of life, everybody knowing each other. It was a close-knit community. On the 15th of August 1974, we heard aeroplanes above and tanks in the distance. Everybody was screaming, shouting and was scared. A few people in the village that had cars managed to leave the village with nothing but the clothes that they stood in. We were so scared we hid under the beds and inside the wardrobes. When we realised what was happening, a lot of the girls decided to wear old black clothes so that they would look older and hopefully avoid being raped by the soldiers. I had a brother and sister that were disabled, so I would pretend to look the same so the soldiers would not come near me. The Turkish soldiers made us stand in the heat for a roll call every day, scaring us by saying they were going to kill us. They locked us in the church with no food or drink, constantly shouting at us in Turkish. Most of the men from the village were taken away, including my dad, Kyriakou Christophie. After 3 days they brought some of the men back, including my dad. But unfortunately 17 of them have never been seen again. Years later, some of the remains of our missing have been found close to the village in mass graves. The families have finally been able to arrange their funerals. I was in the village for 8 months when, along with some other girls from the village, I was taken by the United Nations in a mini coach to Nicosia, where I crossed to the free areas. I lived with my cousin Maria Lucia Marcou for 3 months. I was then issued with a passport so that I could go to England. My mum, dad, brother and sister stayed in the village with the remaining community for another year before they were transported to Agios Thomas, where they were forbidden to take any food, money or clothing with them. My Auntie Maria and Uncle Peter Yanulu brought me over to England to stay with them, and I thank them with all my heart for looking after me at a very vulnerable time. I still have nightmares and have done for many years because it is an experience that I can never forget.
Thank you, Louis. Today, when refugees come over to the UK from whatever country, they're welcomed in, they're given asylum, they're given money. But in those days, it wasn't like that. My dad had to send his bank statements to the Home Office, I think it was once a year, because she used to study at a private school, which my dad paid for, and that was so she could stay here as a student. He then had to send these bank statements yearly to the Home Office so they could approve her stay, and she wasn't allowed to work either. So when we look back all those years, we forget what life was like and what some of these people went through. Another cousin of mine who was going to come tonight, but the experience so traumatic she just couldn't stand up and say it. But she's written for me 2 stories. The first one, her name's Maria Lazzaro. She lives in Cardiff now. Many of you know her as Maria do Hambo. Helen Anastasia is going to read her first story. Thank you, Helen.
Maria Lazzaro do Hambo, Eftagomi, 1974. The day before the occupation of our village, the people with cars left to try and reach the free areas. Unfortunately, we didn't have a car. I was left in Eftagomi with my mother and father and a few other people. The last bus, which was the only form of transport available to us, was leaving that morning. I took my father, who was blind, by the hand and walked down to the bus driver's house, leaving my mother to sort a few of our clothes to take with us. The bus was supposed to stop on its way down to pick up my mother. We managed to get seats on the bus, but to my horror, it didn't stop to pick her up. I started crying along with my father, but nobody took any notice. Everybody had their own worries. We left Eftagomi on the road towards Gomi Gebi. The bus was speeding off when in front of us I saw something that I would never forget. The family that left before us were in the middle of the road, pointing and screaming at us to go back. They kept saying, "Go back, the Turkish army are here and they have shot my dad." He was lying in the middle of the road in a pool of blood. We turned back shaking and screaming, not knowing where the Turkish army were going to appear from. When we got back to the village, we found my mother sitting on the step of the house in tears. We now had to decide how we were going to keep ourselves safe from the Turkish army. Just the name panicked us as we grew up fearing and knowing what they were capable of. We remembered our grandmother's stories of when they used to dress up as old women so the Turks wouldn't notice them, and that's what I did. The safest place we thought was the church, so we gathered there, but we were wrong. In front of us was a mountain, and we could see a man from Eftagomi being battered with a gun. We then saw him running towards us in the church, tripping and falling along the way, picking himself up as best he could. "You have got to surrender or they are going to start shooting us," as he falls on the floor again. We did surrender, putting a white sheet out of the church window. The worst was yet to come. This was our first day under the Turkish occupation.
Thank you, Helen. I just want to add one thing to that. Her mother is my father's sister, and it brings tears to my heart every time I hear those stories, because we're in England and there was nothing we could do to help them in their time of need. But earlier we mentioned about, I'm going to call him Charlie because that's what we called him, the guy that was murdered by the settlers, by the colonists, which led to Eftagomi's leaving Eftagomi. And what happened was, they knew who the colonist was. They supposedly arrested him. They supposedly, I'll call it a kangaroo court, that's me being sceptical, but anyway, they supposedly took this guy to court in Nicosia or Famagusta, wherever they took him. And this Charlie lived next door to my aunt, which is Maria's parents. And she used to go in and look after him and cook his food and everything for him. And because she was the person that discovered him on the morning of his murder, she was made to stay behind after Eftagomi has left. So if you can imagine, you saw that scene earlier with the cat walking across the road and wind blowing everything. That's what it was like for her. Everyone left Eftagomi. She was the last one. She stayed there on her own for 2 weeks while all her family went over to the other side, to the free areas so they could get away from persecution. Our last story is also from Maria Lazzaro, and I would like to invite Ali Gibari to read it for me.
Did we add that this was a stunning 17-year-old woman,
She was a stunning 17-year-old woman because she's my cousin.
Oh. Okay. Through the darkness of night, we felt safer staying in groups. We were staying with us in Theatro, plus another family, and a young woman who was a friend. Very suddenly on this particular night, there was the loudest bang on the door. It sounded as if someone was using the butt of a gun to make so much noise. It was. When my mother opened it, standing in the doorway in front of her, she saw the army captain, a man who had previously done some very horrible things to us, and we were petrified of him. He pushed his way past both my mother and my father. I was standing further inside with my friend. "I want you and you," he said, pointing at me and my friend. "I want you two to come to the house that I'm staying in. You're going to cook my dinner." His gun was pressed into my back. I could not argue. My mother started pleading with him. "Please, no. Here is some food. Take it." We had cooked a chicken that was on a plate on our table. He grabbed the chicken, but still forced me and my friend into his car at gunpoint. Our parents were screaming and begging for him not to take us away. He ignored their pleadings and just shouted at everyone to shut up. While being pushed into the car, I implored my mother, "Please don't stay around waiting for me. Try and get away." I could not know if we were ever going to come back. I was concerned about what would happen to my parents. Even now, so many years later, I very often think of that moment. I wanted my parents just to get away to the safety of the unoccupied free areas. I thought my friend and I were either going to be killed or shipped away to Turkey. But of course, now that I'm a parent myself, I know that my own dear mum and dad would never have left without me, no matter what the cost to them, even if it meant their lives. His car began speeding away, and it was totally dark. We had no idea where this army captain with no conscience was taking us. I could tell we hadn't left the village, but he was going around in circles to try and disorientate us. After about half an hour, he stopped the car and pushed us out very quickly into the house that he was using. He sat himself down at the kitchen table and instructed us to sit down next to him. We never dared do anything other than what we were told when faced by a man with a gun. Like a hungry animal, he started biting into the cooked chicken, the one that he had taken from the table from my family. While still chewing, he told us to decide who it was that wanted to go to the bedroom first with him. I cannot describe the fear and the nausea that I felt. Somehow my friend was the first to end up in the bedroom. I was left standing in the hall, and all I kept thinking was, I have to do something. I have to do something. I panicked, didn't know what else to do, so I just opened the front door to see if anyone was there that could help us. Sadly, no one was there, so with resignation, I just shut the door. I must have made a noise when opening and shutting the door, because he ran out of the bedroom worried. "Who's there?" he asked. "I'm not sure," I said. As soon as he went back into the bedroom, I had the idea of doing the same thing again. Once more he came running out of the bedroom, looking to see who was there. Suddenly, and to my amazement, he shouted, "I'm taking you home." My friend and I hugged each other in tears. We could not believe what he had just said. We were going to go home. He does take us home. I found my mother on her knees praying, and my father lying on the floor where he had fainted. We all cried together.
I've known that story for quite some time, obviously. She told us that when she came out, and we were all relieved that her and many of our other relatives got out of Entagomi, even though we all spiritually want to go back. She left about 7 months after the occupation. She managed to get out with the Red Cross. It's not the days of communication that we have today. No one had any idea what was going on, where she was. So her parents had no idea where she was going. The Red Cross took her away. They didn't know she was safe until a year and a half later when they actually come out. She was taken to Legia Palace, in Nicosia. She was taken across, and there a car was waiting for her, provided by the government, and they said to her, "Where do you want to go?" I mean, obviously everything was in chaos, and I'm not blaming anyone, but the government was doing its best to provide for people. But they said, "Where do you want to go?" She said, "Well, I've got a sister who happens to live in Sodira." She actually got engaged, her sister, just before the invasion of the village fell, and she got stuck in Sodira, and she actually got married. I think it was about October time. I think it's before the new Larnaca airport opened. So none of us could even get to Cyprus. So she got married in Sodira with her new in-laws, with just one family member. It was one of our relatives that managed to cross up. It was Luga who was there. So she said to the driver, "Well, take me to Sodira, we'll find my sister." And he took her there. He found her sister. Her sister had no idea. Just this car pulled up, and out got her sister. Out come her sister. And from then on, she just wanted to get out of Cyprus because of what she'd seen, the atrocities she'd seen, and she just wanted to get out for safety. And she had a sister here in London, in the UK, along with us as well. And we got her over here, and she lived the rest of her life in Cardiff, and that's where she is today. She was going to come, but it was just too traumatic for her. Anyway, that concludes our presentation. I'd really like to open up the floor to any questions. So before I hand back to Theo, has anyone got any questions they'd like answered?
If I may just make a comment, really, I think your organisation does an amazing job. Thanks.
I think your organisation does an amazing job because things have become almost a rhetoric, a Cyprus solution, it becomes a faceless thing. Suddenly we're seeing individual people, we're hearing individual stories, people with a beating heart, and it makes it much more real. Thank you.
Well, at the end of the day, it's about the people. Simple as that. Anyone else?
Just a statement, just a comment.
Yeah, sorry.
Just a comment. What you showed us today, Nick, justifies the front page of The Sun on the 5th of August, 1974. Barbarians, you should be ashamed.
Thank you. Don't forget that story wasn't put in by us. It was the news reporters at the time that called the invasion barbarians and what was going on. And what you see is replicated in every single village of the occupied areas.
Μιλήσω ελληνικά εγώ. Αυτά τα εγκλήματα του πολέμου που φανερά μαρτυρούν αυτοί που τα υπέστησαν τα βασανιστήρια. Και έτυχε να δω και ένα επεισόδιο της σειράς Πάμε Ρακέτων τελευταία, όπου και πάλι κάποια Κύπρια ήταν παρούσα μια οικογένεια Κύπριων και είπαν φανερά τι υπόφεραν στα χέρια των Τούρκων. Και ότι μια από τις αδελφές τους, μετά από όσα υπέστη, έχει τρελαθεί και ζει στο Λονδίνο, ζει στην Αγγλία, δεν ξέρω ακριβώς πού. Εφόσον έχουμε τεκμηριωμένες τέτοιες περιπτώσεις, δεν μπορούμε να τις αξιοποιήσουμε για να αποδείξουμε μια και καλή. Ποιοι είναι αυτοί οι άνθρωποι με τους οποίους καλούμαστε να ζήσουμε μαζί. Και ακόμα κάτι, ευκαιριακά, δεν ξέρω πολύ θα το είδετε, ένας χωριανός μου, ο Νίκος ο Σκουρίδης, έγινε πρώτο θέμα στις τηλεοράσεις και στις εφημερίδες τελευταία, πολύ πρόσφατα. Αποφάσισε, λέει, 78 χρόνια να πάει να χτίσει το χωριό μας, στον Τάδε Καντιδατήτου, για να πεθάνει στο σπίτι του. Το σπίτι του δεν υπάρχει. Τον κρέμλησαν, Αλλά αυτός αποφάσισε να χτίσει στο οικόπεδο που έμεινε. Και είχε επανειλημμένα πάει στο χωριό εκατοντάδες φορές τα τελευταία χρόνια και γνωρίστηκε με όλους εκείνους τους ανθρώπους και τους είπε τι σκέφτεται να κάνει, ακόμα και στο κείμενο του που δεν είχε πέρασμα, έλεγε. Το ίδιο θα περνάσαμε όπως δεν υπάρχει πρόβλημα. Αυτός, καλός ή κακός, το έκανε. Πήγαινε στις αρχές τους. Επήρε άδειες. Επήρε γραπτή άδεια να χτίσει. Έβαλε αρχιτέκτονα τουρκοκύπριο. Έβαλε εργολάβο τουρκοκύπριο. Και ήταν έτοιμο να ξεκινήσει. Και τελικά έγινε αυτό που όλοι ξέρετε, φαντάζομαι. Ούτε λίγο δεν πολύ, αν ήταν εκεί θα τον λυσάρει κιόλας. Λοιπόν, εμείς έχουμε στα χέρια μας ντοκουμέντα που μπορούμε να τα προβάλλουμε για να πείσουμε ότι η Τουρκία και οι άνθρωποι της εκεί δεν επιζητούν ειρηνική συμβίωση, δεν επιζητούν ούτε καν συνομοσπονδία, αφού με το σύστημα που ο Χωριανός μου έδωσε, είναι σαν να τους αναγνώρισαν τα πάντα. Και όμως δεν το θέλουν πάλι. Είναι εθνοκάθαρση που θέλουν. Και πρέπει να το παρουσιάσουν.
I think, unfortunately, I mentioned it earlier, it's the bigger picture, and unfortunately, the people that can make the difference are not listening to us. It's simply not, they're just not interested. I mean, could you explain, maybe you'd like to say a word about how do our politicians come across to you as wanting to help?
First and foremost, the politicians are voted by the people. We have democracy. We make no apologies for it. In the last presidential elections, there were different ideologies, different proposals of how the problem should be solved, and the people decided the way they decided. Now, in answering the question that these witnesses, as terrible as they are, the people that have lived through these terrible experiences, which has been traumatic and shaped their life and their thinking, and there's no excuse, they're crimes against humanity. It's not that the government has not. The government has taken the case to the European Court of Human Rights, and the European Court of Human Rights did take decisions. The United Nations took decisions about ethnic cleansing. It's just that you do not have an implementation mechanism at the international level. At the international level, if you have the United Nations, the Security Council, you have Chapter 7, as it were, of the Security Council, which can even go to war. But it also means unanimity. But it also means everybody comes on board. It means no vetoes. So it is, for me, it's all, I don't want to use heavy words. But if the people that you say can make a difference are not listening to you, why are they not listening to you? Is it because they're not sympathetic? Is it because they say, well, these are inconvenient truths, we don't really want to know about them, let's put them under the rug? That's not what's happening. That is not what's happening. Now, we come against a brick wall. I mean, a brick wall, because I think also, as you mentioned, the bigger picture, that we forget to look at the bigger picture. And you have a Turkey right now, which, I mean, my heart, to be honest with you, I mean, my heart bleeds for the Turkish Cypriots. Yeah, it does. In what sense does it do? I'm not saying that, in the sense that they're really held by the throat. Erdogan doesn't really care about them. It's like telling me that the Egyptians really care about the Palestinians, or that the Syrians care about the Palestinians. No, it's a much wider picture. It is a regional picture. Erdogan, of course, is Turkey is not in the occupied part of Cyprus for vacation. The idea, the issue that that Mr. Dempsey was telling us that the moment the ceasefire line opens up, there will be bloodshed and there will be massacres. And right now, following what some of Turkish Cypriot friends tell me, and what you see on Twitter and what you see on social media, if it wasn't for the Turkish invasion, which they, in an Orwellian manner, they call it a peace operation, it is what it is. It was an invasion, and the occupation continues. We would have been slaughtered we would have been massacred. Well, and I asked the question, which very few can give me the answer: how many Turkish Cypriots were killed between 67 and 74? How many Greek Cypriots were killed between 67 and 74? We had problems in 64. We did. And there were Turkish Cypriots that they died, no question about it. Also Greek Cypriots. I think the numbers are 430 and 197 Greek Cypriots. I mean, some people can, so show me a single country in the world that did not have problems of nation building, and I will rest my case. Now, too many. We can explain the reasons what happened. 67, 74, it was a Greek military junta that exported its military adventurism against Cyprus. Who was behind the junta? The bigger picture that you say. What were they trying to do? When the putsch happened, okay, Mr. Denktash did not say, please, Turkey, come, intervene, because we're being slaughtered. Mr. Technis said, and it's on record, and I have it in my archives, monitored by the FBIS, the Foreign Broadcast Service that the Americans have in Cyprus. He said, no, this is an internal affair of the Greek Cypriots in Greece. We have nothing to do with it. Now the narrative changes, has been changing. And I'm not sure, as the general wisdom was, that the invasion happened, the putsch happened because of union of Cyprus with Greece. I'm not at all convinced that was the case. Samson didn't call it. I'm not an apologist for Samson. Okay, I'm not an apologist for OKB. OKB was a terrorist organization, I say so. TMT was a terrorist organization, I say so. But Samson didn't say anything. And Denktash said, this is an affair of the Greek Cypriots. What was happening? Yes, I would say a crime about dismembering Cyprus altogether. At best, it would have been a double enosis. There had to be a putsch to give the legal, quote-unquote, justification of the invasion. The Charter of the United Nations does not allow invasions and occupations. There had to be a putsch. Turkey can invade. Okay? Turkey can invade. And then what do? You split the country. You give what you give to Turkey, you give what you give to Greece, therefore you can have cohesion of the southern flank of NATO. Don't forget it's Cold War. Don't forget it is Kissinger. Don't forget that there could not have been a war they would not allow a war between Greece and Turkey, because if you do that, then it means the southern flank of NATO breaks up, it means the Soviets come down. And we cannot afford to have an independent Cyprus. Therefore, what do? You destroy the country. You disappear it. It would have been a total dismemberment. But that they just didn't ask the people. And to this very same day, it is the strategic significance of Cyprus. As if people don't live there. And look at what Turkey is trying to do in the region. President Erdogan was here the other day. He spoke at Chatham House. Okay? Full house. Standing room only. He finishes, 40 hands go up to ask a question. My hand was also up there. And I was recognized to ask the question, the first question. Don't ask me how I was recognized, but I was recognized. I got up in a minute and maybe 15, 16 seconds. Okay, because I had in my head what I was going to say, and you do not do Turkey bashing, you show respect, and you don't lecture. So I said a few words in Turkish, okay, and then I asked the question about the security. I said, Greece does not want to be a current of power, the United Kingdom doesn't want to be a current of power. Is Turkey willing to withdraw its occupation troops from Cyprus and change the Treaty of Guarantee into a modern, new cooperative agreement? He looks at me, he says to me, we're not going to allow you, this is talking in front of everybody on the record, we're not going to allow you to explore and exploit the hydrocarbons in Cyprus.
You don't ask that question.
Huh?
You don't ask that question.
Well, he did not answer the question, but he's also said what he said. So, in other words, what we have conquered through the use of force and maintained through the use of force is ours. And what the rest of it, we will negotiate. And what came to my mind was John F. Kennedy, who exactly said you cannot negotiate with people that say what is mine. What was yours is mine now, and what is yours, what's left of it, is also negotiable. You know, we are not talking, and this is the mistake that I often face in trying to promote our cause here and everywhere. I mean, I've been in the service since '76 for 42 years. Even if I was il stupido and popus ignoramus, something will stick. Okay? Now, either people do not want to recognize the fact that it is not just a question of Cypriot Greeks and Cypriot Turks, Armenians, Maronites, and Lions, all of us. We tend to forget about the Armenians. We tend to forget about the Maronites. The Minister of Energy is a Maronite. He tells me, where do we fit in all this thing? The President of the House of Parliament for many, many years was Armenian. Where do we fit in all this? We tend to forget that. Anyway, we have internal problems. We have to recognize it. We cannot be prisoners of the past. We have to turn the page without tearing it up. If we cannot agree about the history of the past, we should be able to agree about the history of the future. Now, if our people are left alone, in my heart of hearts, I know that in the fundamentally new political environment that we operate in, as members of the European Union, we will find a solution, I have no doubt. But we have to decouple ourselves from Turkey. Greece is not a problem. Greece actually was to decouple from us as well. We are Cypriots of Greek background, and we're proud of it. You have Cypriots of Turkish background, proud of it. The Maronites, everybody's proud of it. It's a quilt. Okay? And it's a quilt, but that's the way it should go. We have to decouple ourselves. We cannot be a vassal state, and we cannot be a kratos mascara licking. We cannot be, we want to become a normal state where the allegiance is paid to the Cypriots. It is independence all over again, but this time we should be ours, because in 1960 it was about us, without us. That's what will happen in 1960. The region. So when I talk to people everywhere, they forget the region, they forget Turkey. He says, well, you know, a simplistic thing. A simplistic thing that, you know, Greeks and Turks never really got along together. You know, they're in Cyprus, they fight each other, how terrible. Now let's teach them, about confidence-building measures. Let's understand each other. Of course understand each other. Of course respect each other. Of course do unto others as you have others do unto you. But look at the picture. Look at the elephant and see what's happening. And Turkey has, in northern Iraq. In northern Iraq, do you see what they're doing in northern Iraq? Do you see what's happening in northern Syria? Exactly carbon copy. And Salman Levent, to his credit, he's a true Cypriot. And I'm talking to you now, I voted for him as a member of the European Parliament against my brother. Okay, and I said so publicly. On my Twitter feed, you will find it. I believe in our people, in the goodness of our people. Okay? But Turkey, it's another story. You know which way it's going, it's their business, but it affects us. Mr. Erdogan and his ilk, they're the ones that are making the money in the occupied farms.
Okay, thank you.
Let's continue.
Thank you.
I haven't finished that.
You haven't finished? No. Sorry, I was going to comment. No. I've got so many points that I want to...
I'm closing it up. First of all, I'll share what the lady said. It is very, very important not to give something concrete. People are people. So what you do, except Takomi, what you do is correct. And that's the way it should be. We should look at the truth. Today is 100 years of the birth of Nelson Mandela. Okay? That man could have come out of jail and could have said, listen guys, it's my turn now. You did it to me, it's my turn, and you know what? I can do it a lot worse than what you did. He came out with, this is how we have to treat the way to go forward, but Turkey, I repeat, has to withdraw its troops. The biggest problem right now that we're facing in the talk is that they say, we want a base. We will withdraw the troops from 30,000, 36,000 to whatever numbers in the course of 15, 20 years, but we want a base. Why should the British have bases? They do not have any next of kin in Cyprus. We want to have a base. And we say, no, you come out. And we want a certifiable, verifiable implementation. That was part of the problem of 2004. In 2004, people still, the tables were turned around, they say, well, you voted against the plan, which means you do not want a solution. We were against a specific plan who people haven't actually read it. Does anybody in this room read 10,000 pages? Thank you very much.
Lobby.
But maybe lobby did.
Lobby.
Okay? And then they're telling us, so this is, I want to thank you. I always said that the High Commission is at your disposal. And I mean that. I say what I mean what I say. And when I say these things, is not to inject elements of chauvinism. We are proud of our country without being nationalistic. But we're not children of a lesser God. We are baked under the same sun. What is good for the goose is good for the gander. And what we ask is nothing more and nothing less other than what is given to other law-abiding and loving people that want to live in peace and people everywhere. What do they want? They want to send their kids to school. They want to have economic life. They want to have a good healthcare system. They want less taxes. These things. But Cyprus has to be for the Cypriots. Otherwise, we're losing it. What is happening in the occupied part? It is a crime against humanity. And before you know it, no Turkish Cypriots will be there. Everything that is being done, it is ethnic cleansing. The names are changing. And when you change the name, what are you changing? You're changing somebody's DNA. Okay? So, the settlers are coming in. Turkish Cypriots are being stifled. Cypriot Greeks are leaving as well. Where do you think this thing is going to go down the line 10, 15, 20 years from now? 30 years from now. So all these things have to come in our calculation. At the same time, what can I tell you? Sometimes I really, my heart beats. Because what I've been doing since 76 has been a blessing for me. It's been a blessing because it's my passion, it's my energy, it's my happiness, but it's also my sadness. Because I'm going to expire next year. Age discrimination kicks in because I will retire, and I want the problem to be solved.
You can always join lobby. You must
there you go. Thank you. All right, guys.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you for that short version. Last question to panel, then I'm going to hand back to Thea.
With all my respect to the High Commissioner, he's a diplomat, I'm not. I disagree. What Turkey did in Cyprus in 74 with the two invasions is a flagrant violation of every convention that there is from 1949 onwards. And we had 800 women raped. That's official from the ministry. And all the murders and all the crimes she did, and for all those murders, she has to be tried. I mean, they tried Germany with the Nuremberg trials, and she paid for it. And up to this moment, the Jews are trying to find the assassinators of, and those who are responsible for the Jewish people who died in the Holocaust. I don't see why we should let Turkey free and without punishment. And because she hasn't been punished for all her crimes, that's why she became a tyranny. Now, on the other subject of the unenforceable decisions and the Security Council resolutions, there is a document released in the Public Records Office in August 1974, when there was a meeting in London with James Callaghan, the then Foreign Secretary, and Kurt Waldheim, the Security Council, the United Nations Secretary General, where they agreed that the security resolutions would not be issued under Article 7, so they are not enforceable. That's your answer.
Just one thing I forgot to mention, there's some books on the table written by our last priest. He now lives in Bristol and they're free, so if any of the ladies want to take them, there's two types there. And I'd just like to thank the Technis for allowing us to present tonight, and also the Lobby of Cyprus for giving us the opportunity as well. Thank you very much.
Thank you, thank you. Before we finish, I just want to add a couple of points, because I think it's important that we balance the books, as we keep saying. If we talk about the Annan Plan, if within the Annan Plan there wasn't a bi-zonal, bi-federal solution, it was the sovereignty of the Republic of Cyprus, a unitary state. Yeah? I believe a lot of people would have voted for it. But unfortunately it wasn't in our hands, the Greek Cypriots, to be involved in the drafting of that plan. And we know who drafted that plan, in particular. One major person, Lord Hanning. And we've, on many occasions, especially on Margaritis Kyriakos Christodoulou, where we used to challenge Hanning on these points, we know that we want to live in harmony with every Cypriot from every national group, whether they're Turkish Cypriot, Maronites. But let's not forget that statistics coming from the Republic of Cyprus specify that over 20% of the citizens of the Republic of Cyprus are currently neither Greek Cypriot or Turkish Cypriot. That's a big percentage. And they're not really represented in any solution. They're incorporated with the Greek Cypriot community, and not the Turkish Cypriot community. So when we talk about human rights, we must talk about human rights of every single national group, whether they're Filipinos, whether they're Russians, whoever they may be. Yeah. Individual human rights, thank you. Individual human rights. Now, we have a power base called Turkey. The only persons who can demilitarize them or change the structure of any solution, any negotiation, is not down to the Republic of Cyprus. It's down to where we're living here today, the United Kingdom, and the other Western powers, including Russia and others. They're the ones who have the power and decision-making for our nation.
Do they deal with today's Erdogan that tell them, go fly a kite and I don't really care?
No, they don't, because they have interests with Erdogan.
Exactly.
And therefore, that's what I'm coming to. Therefore, we are a sovereign nation, member of the European Union. Let's stay as we are. Let's not give away our sovereignty. We were under occupation for how many years? Through the Ottoman Empire as a British colony. We've had independence for how many years? I call it 4 years, 1960 to 64. Let's wait for another 20, 50, 100, 200 years. It's a cycle, things will change. Turkey, the powerhouse, may not be a powerhouse in 25 or 50 years' time. The dynamics will change, the geopolitics will change. Gas, oil, petroleum in 50 years' time will not be looked at as a primary source of energy. Other energy will come into play as it is now. Let's not rush. Yesterday I was reading again the papers, the last opportunity for us to have a solution for Cyprus. How many times have we heard that?
Hundreds.
Thank you very much. Anyway, I rest my case. I would like His Eminence to say a few words to us, please.
Now it's your turn. But you're a man of God and a man of the cloth. So we just bless us all.
Πρώτα να ευχαριστήσω όλους, ιδιαίτερα τους γραμματές και τους ανθρώπους οι οποίοι ετοίμασαν όλα αυτά τα πράγματα, μας συνεκκινήσατε και πρέπει να ευχαριστήσω όλους εσάς που ήρθατε, διότι αυτά που λέμε χωρίς εσάς, χωρίς τον κόσμο, δεν μπορεί να γίνει. Πρέπει να έχουμε τον κόσμο πίσω μας. Όλος ο κόσμος, αν μικρή και μεγάλη, πρέπει να τα ξέρουν αυτά. Όχι εμείς. Εσείς είστε νέοι, όχι μεγέθους. Εγώ θα πεθάνω αύριο. Τι θα γίνει αύριο? Θα τα ξέρει το παιδί σου, δεν σου. Κάναμε τέτοια δουλειά, κάναμε. Ιστορία Δεν πεθαίνει. Αλλά η ιστορία διδάσκεται. Όλεγε σε ένας, μάλλον μες στο γραφείο στην Τζίπουσα. Που είδατε διαλέξεις του τάδε Αμερικάνου που είναι ο ειδικό για το θουκιδί. Και κάνει διαλέξεις τώρα και εκτός τα βιβλία και κάνει πώς ενίκησαν οι Σπαρτιάδες τους Αθηναίους. Λέει, η Αθήνα ήθελε να γίνει αυτοκρατορία. Όποιος διαβάσει το Θουκυδί, οι Αμερικάνοι στα πανεπιστήμια έχουν το Θουκυδί. Συνέχεια. Κέρδισε διότι είχε δίκιο. Διότι η Αθήνα ήθελε να γίνει αυτοκρατορία. Να επιβάλλει σε όλους τους Έλληνες μέχρι και την Ιταλία την αυτοκρατορία. Όταν ήταν δημοκρατία, αλλά δεν είχε το δικαίωμα να επιβάλλει την γνώμη της. Οι Σπαρτιάδες, όπως λέγει ο Καβάφης, όταν ο Αλέξανδρος του λέει να έρθετε να πάμε να πολεμήσουμε εναντίον των Περσών, λένε εμείς δεν πάμε. Πρέπει να είναι αρχηγός του στρατού Σπαρτιάδης. Δεν μπορεί να είναι δεύτερος Σπαρτιάδης. Ο Αλέξανδρος δεν το δεχόταν, αφού ήταν ο Αλέξανδρος και λέει όλοι οι Έλληνες εκτός από τους Σπαρτιάδες, χωρίς τον Καπαδαίμονας. Έλεγε γιατί όταν εκένησε ο Αλέξανδρος, τι μας ενδιαφέρει. Λοιπόν, για να επανέλθω μαζί με τις ευχαριστίες μου, τα συγχαρητήρια μου, να μάθουμε να σκεφτόμαστε, να φιλοσοφούμε. Λένε οι ιστορικοί, Γιώργο, στην Ανδρία. Στα σχολεία λέει πρέπει να βάλετε τη φιλοσοφία, τα μωρά να μάθουν φιλοσοφία, να σκέφτονται, να συζητούν αντί να μαλώνουν και να σκοτώνονται και να σφάλουν ένας τον άλλον ή να μην μιλούνται οι κοπέλες και οι άντρες και να σκέφτονται χίλια όνειρα πράγματα. Λοιπόν, εμείς, ο ελληνισμός γενικά έχει ιστορία. Και αφού έχει ιστορία πρέπει να διαβάσει. Και πρέπει να τη μελετά και να φιλοσοφάει. Μου έλεγε ένας πρεσβευτής, να μην πω το όνομα, Κύπρης. Πίσω από ύστερα. Όταν ήταν το σχέδιο Νανά, του λέει, να σου πω, εσείς ίδιες, διαβάζετε τι λέει ο Ηράκλειτος, τα πάντα ρίχνει λέει, αυτό που πεις. Αλλάζουν τα πράγματα. Σήμερα είναι αυτό, αύριο είναι άλλο. Σήμερα είναι η Μαρία, είναι αύριο λιγότερο. Και εσύ τι φοβάσαι. Να κάνετε υπομονή, να μην υπογράψετε. Να μην υπογράψετε το σχέδιο Νανά. Γιατί τα πάντα, όπως το νερό. Το νερό δεν μένει μόνο το πάνω. Και τα πράγματα αλλάζουν. Γι' αυτό να μάθουμε να είμαστε λίγο πιο φιλόσοφοι. Να μην δουλεύει μόνο η καρδία μας, ο νους. Και να είμαστε και πιο προσγειωμένοι. Πήγα στην Κύπρο, μόλις έγινε η εισβολή και μετά. Και ο Έλληνας πρέσβης ήταν εγώ. Μιχάλης ο Δούμητας. Πάω εκεί στην Βουλή. Και μου λέει, μα κάνουμε λικτρέντες, μου λέει, πυροβολούμουνε. Μα γυμνός πυροβολάτε χωρίς να έχεις όπλα. Πρέπει να είσαι οργανωμένος. Πρέπει να πεινάς και να προστατεύεις το σπίτι σου. Τα παιδιά σου, η γυναίκα σου, σημαίνει να έχεις χρήματα να τα προστατεύεις. Τα όπλα θέλουν χρήματα. Τι λέει ο Πάμ, ξοδέψετε χρήματα για να φυλάξετε το σπίτι σας. Δεν γίνεται άλλος πώς να κάνεις το φοβαρτά, να χτίσεις κήπια, παλάτια, να τρως σκυλάδες και ο τόπος να μην έχει ασφάλεια, να μην έχει στρατό, να μην έχει χρήματα, να μην έχει δύναμη, τα χρήματα, να φυλάξεις χρήματα. Λοιπόν, τι να πω άλλο, να συγχαρώ άλλη μια φορά, διότι υπάρχει μια ελπίδα ότι τα πράγματα θα καλυτρέψουν. Να μην χάνουμε την ελπίδα μας. Η χριστιανοσύνη ζει με την ελπίδα. Η ελπίδα δεν πεθαίνει. Η λέει πεθαίνει τελευταία. Δεν πεθαίνει η ελπίδα. Ούτε η τελευταία δεν πεθαίνει. Δεν θα είναι ελπίδα εάν πεθάνει. Λοιπόν, η Κύπρος θα ελευθερωθεί. Όταν θέλω Θεός, δεν ξέρω. Μόνο οι προφήτες θα ξέρουν αυτά. Ο Καβάφης λέει, ο κόσμος ακούει, βλέπει, αλλά λέει αυτοί που ξέρουν είναι οι προφήτες. Και ο Θεός λέει. Οι λαοί μιλώντας, πας στον τρόπο, ψωνίζουν, αγοράζουν, αλλά οι προφοί σοφοί, να κάνουμε τους ανθρώπους σοφούς, τα παιδιά μας, να διαβάζουν, να μελετούν την ιστορία, να ξέρουν το σπίτι, να αγαπούνε. Αγάπη δεν σημαίνει να λες αγαπώ, αγαπώ είμαι πατριώτης, τι σημαίνει πατριώτης. Να κάνεις θυσίες, να ταπεινώνεσαι, να δίνεις, να σκέφτεσαι, να βοηθάς τον άλλον, να αγαπάς τον άλλον. Έτσι γίνεται. Γι' αυτό η Κύπρο για να ελευθερωθεί και να αποκαταστηθεί, να ελευθερωθεί. Εγώ λέω είναι ελεύθερη. Γι' αυτό από τις πλευράς αυτής πρέπει να είμαστε και λιγάκι ευχαριστημένοι. Εάν οι Τούρκοι μπορούσαν την άλλη ημέρα να την πάρουν όλοι και κανένα να μην πει τίποτα. Μιλάμε, τις 15 Αυγούστου. Να την παίρναν όλοι και κανένας δεν θα σήκωνε το στόμα, τη φωνή του να πει τίποτα. Ο Κάλαχα, είχα πάει στο ΚΑΡΤ, αυτός σε σχέση με το ΚΑΡΤ, με τον Μέρβιν, υπουργός εσωτερικών. Και το χαιρέτησα. Μου λέει, ο Μακάριος μου λέει τα φίλο. Και ξέρει, λέει, θα πω την Κύπρο.
Όλοι αγαπούν την Κύπρο.
Τι μου είπε. Γι' αυτό λέει, κάνετε υπόμονη. Ύστερα λέει, για μας λέει, και έτσι την εκκλησιά, τη δική τους. We are children of the chapels. Είμαστε παιδιά των ναών. Εκεί σπουδάσαμε, λέει. Δεν είχαν εκκλησίες. Ήταν καταδιωγμένοι, δεν ήταν Αγγλικανοί, ούτε Καθολικοί, ήταν Προτεστάντες. Ακραίοι. Και εκεί ήταν τα σχολεία. Και βγαίναμε, λέει, και μαθαίνουμε. Ο Βίλσον, ο περίφημος, και πρωθυπουργός εκεί ήταν κύριος. Πήγαινε στην εκκλησία του, δεν ήταν ούτε Αγγλικανός, ούτε Καθολικός, ούτε Ορθόδοξος, πήγε έναν κύριο, πρωθυπουργό. Εμείς τολμάμε, έχουμε τη δύναμη, το κήρυγμα να διαβάζει το Ευαγγέλιο, να πηγαίνει στην εκκλησιά, σαν να εκκλησιά δική μου. Εκκλησιά δική σου. Η παιδεία δική σου. Αυτό το πράγμα που έχετε μπροστά σας και καμαρώνουμε όλοι για τη γραφή, αυτά τα φύλαξαν, τα έκαμε οι άνθρωποι, τα φύλαξαν τώρα 2.000 χρόνους. 2.000 χρόνους. Ένας Εγγλέζος, επίσκοπος Αμερικανός, έγραψε ένα άρθρο πριν ένα μήνα. Το Σαββάτο το γράφει. Και ήταν καθηγητής αυτός και είναι επίσκοπος και είναι στο Λονδίνο. Βοηθός του επισκόπου του Λονδίνου. Λοιπόν και λέει, έχω ένα φίλο λέει κόπτη, ο Δαβίδ λέει, και πήγα στους Αγιστόμους και αυτό μου λέει, με δίδαξε. Μου είπε όλη την ιστορία λέει του χριστιανισμού. Δεν είδε άνθρωπο λέει στη ζωή μου χωρίς βιβλίο να τα ξέρει και να τα λέει. Και του λέει, πού τα τέρασε. Και λέει, τι θα γίνει λέει, αλλά αυτός ο κόσμος φύγει. Οι χριστιανοί που τη Μέση Ανατολή. Μιλάμε, εάν ο κόσμος φύγει από την Κύπρο, ο χριστιανικός, αν φύγει ο κόσμος από τη Μέση Ανατολή, θα φύγει από την Κύπρο. Γι' αυτό η Κύπρος είναι ανάποδα. Διότι η χριστιανοσύνη κρατιέται εκεί. Οι Σύριοι, οι Μαρονίτες και οι άλλοι που πήγαν στην Κύπρο πήγαν τον καιρό των Φασαριών, το 14ο, το 15ο, το 16ο αιώνα. Και μείνανε εκεί και εξελληνίστηκαν. Όχι να Μαρονίτες, αλλά είναι, σου λέει, εγώ είμαι ξέρετε. Τι λέει το σχέδιο να, το ξέρεις τι λέει. Το σχέδιο να, πού είναι το σχέδιο. Εσύ, πώς το χωριό μου. Πήρε τα χωριά, όχι το χωριό, σαν το πήρε όμως τα Μαρονίτικα. Τα Μαρονίτικα τα έβαλε στον ελληνικό τομέα. Γιατί ο Πάπας λέει τούτα χωριά πρέπει να πάμε τους Έλληνες. Και έτσι ο Χάμι και οι άλλοι έβαλαν στο Χάμι ότι τα χωριά πήγε πώς τέτοια χωριά. Στα χωριά, πες το Μαγκίνης, ο Αγίος Σωμάτος και το άλλο χωριό το μεγάλο, η Βασίλεια, για Μαρίνα. Και πήγανε στον ελληνικό τομέα. Λοιπόν, δεν πήγαινε το χωριό μου. Και λέω και εγώ, μα γιατί το χωριό μου εκεί πέρα, και έχει γύρω τουρκικά χωριά, 15 χωριά είναι ελληνικά, γιατί να βάλε. Δεν σκέφτηκε η δική μου να βάλει αυτή η δύο. Αλλά πού να βάλει. Και τολμά. Και ούτε σκέφτεται αυτό έκαμε όπως άλλος. Λοιπόν, αδελφοί, συγγνώμη, εγώ δεν είστε απόψε να ακούσω. Και χαίρομαι ιδιαίτερα, ελπίθηκα πολύ, συνοχωρήθηκα. Διότι αναβίωσα, εγώ δεν είμαι στην Κύπρο, αλλά σε όλα τα πράγματα, και αυτό και δεν πήγα στο χωριό. Πουθενά δεν πήγα. Θέλω να ζω με την αίσθηση ότι είναι εκεί η Μαρία. ή άλλοι, ο άλλος. Και όταν σκέφτομαι, λέω, πού είναι η Μαρία, πού είναι ο Γιάννης, πού είναι ο Κωστής, και πάω στον δρόμο. Πάω στον δρόμο. Με τον νου και πάω στο γύρο του χωριού να δω πού είναι αυτοί, ζουνέ, υπάρχουν, οι ελιές υπάρχουν, τα δέντρα, ο κόσμος, έτσι θα είναι. Γι' αυτό να πω εκεί από τον τελειώνω. Ο Γρηγόρης, ο καθηγητής, πέθανε. Μόλις έγινε αρχιεπίσκοπος, ήρθε εδώ, ήταν καθηγητής στην Βιέννη. Και του λέω να αναφάσω. Και έκατσε λίγο. Μου λέει, να σου πω, η Τουρκία μου λέει, σε 50 χρόνια θα γίνει 3 κράτη. Θα γίνει η Κωνσταντινούπολη, η Σμύρνη και η Ανατολή μου. Αυτός είναι φιλόσοφος και ιστορικός. Και μιλάμε τώρα πριν 25 χρόνια. Μπορεί τώρα η Τουρκία να κάνει, αλλά η Τουρκία δεν μοιάζει να μην γίνει κράτος στο Κουρδιστάν. Τα άλλα όλα. Γι' αυτό να κάνουμε υπομονή, αλλά να είστε ενωμένοι, αγαπημένοι. Δεν υπάρχουν δεξιοί και αριστεροί. Δεν υπάρχουν. Αυτά είναι τα πράγματα. Υπάρχουν οι άνθρωποι που αγαπούν τον τόπο τους. Είτε είναι στην Αγγλία, είτε στην Κύπρο, είτε στην Ελλάδα, όπου και να. Γι' αυτό είναι το ζητούμενο. Και να αγαπάμε και να κάνουμε σεμινάρια για τα παιδιά και την νεολαία. Σεμινάρια. Λίγοι. Το προσγείωνε να μάθει να ξέρει τι σημαίνει Κύπρο, τι σημαίνει αυτό, τι σημαίνει. Τι σημαίνει Εφτακό, τι σημαίνει Μαραθώνιος, τι σημαίνει ξέρω εγώ. Λάρναγες και Λαπίθου. Σε χωρανείς έτσι. Λευκός είναι βέβαια.
Κατεχόμενοι.
Εσύ είσαι Βαροσάνη. Τι σημαίνει Βαρός, τι σημαίνει Αμόκροτο, τι σημαίνει Κωνσταντία, τι σημαίνει Επίσκοπος Κωνσταντία. Η Αμόκροτο είναι Κωνσταντία. Για το χατήρι του βασιλιά Κωνσταντιου, ο οποίος τα είπε του Κωνσταντίου.
Ο πατέρας μου ήταν πρόσφυγας της Μικράς Ασίας.
Και εμένα ο φίλος μου πέρασε τη Μικράς και όταν πήγαινε στη Κωνσταντίου, λέω να βρω καμιά τουρκάλα, συγκέντησα με στον δρόμο να χαιρετήσω. Να της πω. Στο Λονδίνο μια μέρα περπατούσα, είμαστε στο Westminster Abbey και πώς ήταν. Και περπάτω μόνο μου, να βρω αυτοκίνητο, αφού δεν ήταν καρσικά. Και έρχεται μια κοπέλα μπροστά μου, να βγάλω μια φωτογραφία μου και μου. Τη βγάλω, μια ψηλή κοπέλα, με μαύρο. Πώς θες, με από την Τουρκία μου λέει. Έβγαλε φωτογραφία μου και χάρη. Λοιπόν, ευχαριστούμε πάρα πολύ.
Απόψε ήταν η βραδιά είναι αφιερωμένη στον Μακαρίτηνο Κυριάκο του Χριστοδούλου. Και κάθε χρόνο είναι οι σμήνοι του που κάνουν αυτή την διάλεξη. Διάλογο Κυριάκο. Συγγνώμη. I'm sorry, yes, in English. The event tonight is in memory of our beloved Kyriakos Christodoulou, who was the coordinator of Lobby for Cyprus, who set up Lobby for Cyprus.
He's a member of his family here.
A member of his family is here, Helen Anastasis here, yes. Helen. I sadly have to say that the founding member of Lobby for Cyprus and the president of the Labithos Karavas Association, Mr. Chris Bababando, passed away just over a week ago. And he was, as I said in my words that I sent to members of Lobby for Cyprus, a man who was, had always positive thoughts. Nothing negative, always positive.
Who is that?
Chris Bababando. Bababando. Από Λάβηθον Καραβάν. Πρέπει να το γνωρίζετε. Το γνωρίζετε και σε μαζιότητα, ναι. Αύριο είναι η κηδεία του στον Άγιαννη. Chris was a down-to-earth man, supported Lobby, but every word he used to say was calculated. He would think before he spoke. A wise man, a man who supported our country, his village, but also he was a family man, strong, respectful family man in our community. And all those who can attend tomorrow, please do so at Ayani in Whiteman Road. It's 12:30 p.m. Thank you. And represented here by the President of Lapidus and Karavat Association, Savas Pavlidis, θα καταθέσουμε Στεφάνη, as well as I've been asked to possibly make a small contribution tomorrow at the Gideon, at the church service. Finally, I would just like to ask George Evgeniou. I know this is Cyprus Week, and it hasn't finished, George. Today is Wednesday, you have 2 more days. We'd like to tell us what's going to happen on Thursday and Friday, George. Thank you.
Thank you, Theo. I want to congratulate you and Lobby for Cyprus for the wonderful work that is doing on behalf of all of us. Really, they are the people who are putting the Cyprus issue internationally, and the arguments and the point you raised about the Republic of Cyprus exists, is alive. Why should we bury it? Why should we follow another plan, American plan, which is going to lead to the history of the future? And the history of the future, I'm afraid, it could be the Turkification of the whole of Ireland. Not only Turkification, Islamization of the whole of Cyprus. Already they built a big mosque in Mir Milyar that holds 3,000 people with 4 minarets.
60,000 people.
60,000.
6,000.
Not 60,000. Erdogan went there to inaugurate that. Erdogan is going to revive the Lausanne Treaty that forced Turkey to abandon any rights on Cyprus. Erdogan aims to impose their rights on Cyprus, and not only on the 37%, but on the whole of Cyprus. And this is what my worry is. And this is why events of this kind should be continued. And we should enlighten our people, not only in England, but in Cyprus. I think we are becoming more rayades. You know, we lost the fighting spirit. People are talking to change the word occupation, kadoshi. They want to put another word, to forget. People say, Dexekno no more. We don't want that, Dexekno. We are reaching to that state. Remember, Minor Asia was full of Greeks, Armenians, and what happened to them? Alexandretta was the same. What happened to that? That fear, I think, should be a reality and not just illusion and delusion, and we should really deal with it courageously and take a stand against it. Well, Theatro Technis has been doing the same as Lobby of Cyprus since the 50s. The Cyprus Week started as a result of the Eoga uprising. Every time an English soldier was killed in Nicosia, there were reprisals in Camden, because the Cypriots lived in Camden, in St. Andrew's Church, and there were slogans, ships go home, bloody terrorists. So we thought, how can we counteract this? And we thought of the idea of a Cyprus Week, of cultural, social events, so that we enlighten the British people who the Cypriots are, that they have a history of 5,000 years, and it's not just their work, but also their values that they contribute to the country they came. And this was very, very successful. And when the bloody the Greek junta coup and the Turkish invasion took place in 1974, the emphasis changed to enlighten the people, to tell the people who were behind the Greek junta coup and the Turkish invasion. There was the Dinachoso plan. I don't know if you ever remember the Dinachoso plan. The Dinachoso plan was to unite Cyprus with Greece and give Turkey a huge base in Cyprus. And because Magarios said no, because he knew that Turkey should not be in Cyprus, the Americans make him the #1 enemy of them in the Mediterranean. They call him Castro of Mediterranean and the Red Monk, because they were afraid that President Makarios will bring the Russians into Cyprus. So they wanted to dissolve the Republic of Cyprus. Well, the Republic of Cyprus must not be dissolved. It went through many, many crises, and we should really demand that it's recognized internationally. Is part of the European Union, is part of the Commonwealth Union, whatever name it is. They should continue that legality. The Turkish, so-called Turkish federal state is illegal. There is a resolution in the United Nations that says that this illegal regime will never be recognized because it was created by force. And that is a very great asset for us to argue. This evidence of this village, it needs, yes, you're right, a Nuremberg trial. But any trial, there is a permanent people's tribunal in Paris. I don't know if you heard of that. The Kurds have taken Turkey to the permanent People's Tribunal, and they were found guilty. Turkey does not pay attention. Doesn't matter. We want to influence the international community, the voice of the people. People still don't know what happened in Cyprus. A taxi driver tells me, "Oh, are you a Cypriot?" I say, "What part of Cyprus?" I said, "I come from Cyprus." No part. There is no north and south for me. There is one Cyprus. People don't know. Oh, the Turkish Cypriots and the Greek Cypriots couldn't get on together, and that's why they didn't know who were behind it. So we continue that struggle here. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you very much for attending tonight, and please support all the other events tomorrow and Friday. Thank you, and have a good evening. Safe trip back home. Thank you.
And then the other guy said, so it's Friday and Saturday, play twice.
So these all these people,